Blake.
I'm Lily.
And I'm Dustin from Two Eyes Open.
And this is
OnlyBands! Yeah! All right!
Wow, you have good timing.
Thank you.
Well, I mean, you're working on your own. Sometimes when we have like 3 or 4 people trying it all at the same time, it's a big train wreck. It's terrible.
Oh, yeah, I can imagine.
It's hilarious. So hi, Dustin. Welcome to our podcast, OnlyBands. It is so nice to have you. Why don't you give a quick blurb about what Two Eyes Open is?
Well, thank you for having me. It's nice to be here. Two Eyes Open is just a pop punk alternative rock kind of act that I've started myself as the pandemic began. So I chose like excellent timing to decide to.
Great timing for that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I dropped my first song February 28th of 2020. So it was like right as everything started to lock down. But yeah, I do a lot of like, I don't know, Blink-182, some 41 stuff, but then some like alternative and sort of grungy stuff too.
Yeah, I was going to say, you have a wide variety of different styles, from the song that you just released recently, going all the way back. You have a bunch of different sounds. There's even some like acoustic sounding songs. I think it's great having that kind of variety.
Yeah. I was worried about that a little bit, but I kind of think, I thought like maybe my brain could be that I do a 180 every single song, so. Yeah.
Nice.
And they're all cohesive. Like, it sounds like it's coming from the same band. It's just that same band is doing different sounds. It's really cool.
Well, thank you.
Exactly. Yeah. And it's all like very different in just like types of personalities that you put into it, you know. And what is your latest release about specifically?
Dysphoria is a darker one. I kind of had the idea that maybe around Halloween every year I would release a darker, like heavier song. I tried to do that with Haunt in 2020. It's got a sort of similar vibe, but just because of complications with the pandemic, it didn't come out till December. But Dysphoria is kind of continuing that tradition. And as far as the background behind the song, it's actually a really old song. I wrote it with a friend in college back in like 2015 or 2016.
Wow.
And since then, we've made a ton of facelifts to the song, changing up the lyrics or the vibe of it. It initially was an acoustic song, kind of like Bob Dylan-y, I would say. And then I heard this like Ramones like Misfits thing, and so I turned it into what it is now.
I was going to say, you posted the story behind it on your Twitter that talks about you started this back in 2015 with another person, and it's taken a lot of upgrades. How do you feel that now that it's actually out there? Like, this is a 6-year project for you that's finally out there for others to hear.
Yeah, it's surreal, you know, and I think like at its core, it's still just a simple punk song. So I think telling people like I've been working on this for 6 years is slightly misleading, but I've revisited it, you know. I've come back and like looked at this lyric or analyzed this part and thought about like how I could make this better. But it's surreal because this was one of those songs that I wrote back when I was trying to start the band. I had a handful of guys that were doing music with me, and then, you know, life happens, people go their separate ways. But these were songs that I had before I even had others that were interested in what I was doing, and before I had, you know, people that believed in me, I guess. And so to like finally have this out now as like a new song, and people saying they like it's really cool, you know. I think it's cool to bring that stuff from the older days and not let everything go. So
what made you decide that now was the time to release this song after working on it for so long and so many facelifts for it? What made you think like, okay, this is the time that I'm going to release it?
So the Halloween tradition thing was a big part of it, but another thing was that I don't have a lot of really, really fast punk songs. You know, I've got Ode to Newgrounds is pretty fast too, but I really wanted something to just hit hard And it was the last song that I'm putting out this year, so I wanted to like punch people in the face with my last
You wanted
song.
to leave an impression.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think
For sure.
especially because the song, it's more punk in the beginning, and then towards the end is when it gets a little bit heavier into the metal vibes. And I
Yeah.
think that last kind of punch at the very end of it does leave that impression that you're looking for. And I was not expecting that. When I was listening to the song, I'm like, oh yeah, this is very cool. This is catchy. This is like something you'd play at, like, I don't know, you're gaming with friends and you just put this song in the background, and then it gets metal. I'm like, oh no, this is a headbanger now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that punch at the very end definitely is like, this is my impression. This is what I'm leaving 2021 with. And I think it's a really good idea.
Thank you. Yeah, it was
Yeah.
kind of like a idea that I was inspired by System of a Down in a way, where they have a lot of songs off of like, you know, their debut record and stuff, where they just totally change the vibe halfway
Oh,
through.
yeah.
Or
Yeah.
or like the song ends and then it goes straight into another song that just blasts you in the face. And that's what I wanted, like especially that first screaming section. I'm hoping that you don't see it coming. So
You
I'm
really
glad you said
don't.
that.
Like,
No,
there's no inkling that this is turning into a metal montage at the end.
Yeah.
It just kind of smacks you. Like, at first I had to be like, like, did it change songs on me? And then I go back, I'm like,
Yeah.
no, this is the end of the song.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It sounds really
That's
cool.
cool.
And I
Thank
think
you.
it's something that's different because a lot of people would kind of have the harder hardcore metal part as like the chorus, and they're going to have it there and then they're going to repeat it. You have this completely different vibe throughout the song until you get towards the very end and you're like, no, now we're going to turn it up to like 11. Now we're going to
Yeah.
go overdrive. And I don't think you hear that a lot, and I was not
No.
expecting it, and I honestly was like, okay, this is different.
Yeah, it's definitely not a common thing in the music community, and I feel like that's what makes Dysphoria so special, and like something that is totally gonna grab your attention, because that's basically unheard of. Like, I don't know of another band outside of System of a Down that really does that, you know? And I feel like that's just such, like, you broke so many musical barriers in that song, and just it sounded almost like a completely different genre, and yet it's the same exact song, and like,
It's like a chimera of a song. You've taken
Yeah.
two different things and like fused it together.
I
yeah,
like that.
it almost reminds me of Bohemian Rhapsody a little bit, in just
Yeah.
like the complete like
It changes
difference.
tone.
Yeah, in the change of tone, but also like the message is still the same in the song too.
Yeah. You've blended it
Yeah.
very well, because it does sound like lyrically this is the same song. It's just the style of it has changed, and it's almost just like presenting it in a different way, but it's still the
Yeah.
same message.
Well, thank
Yeah.
you. That means a lot.
Exactly.
That really does. I was trying with the breakdowns. That was the lyrical, I guess, contribution that I added after my friend Colt had finished writing the song, the initial draft, and I was just trying to think about like, what is the bigger message behind what he's trying to say. It was a breakup song initially, and he was just going through a really hard time. But then when I like really listened to like the chorus that he had written, I was like, this is actually a little bit bigger than that. And it's about like not being happy with just everything, you know, just like everything is too much. And so it's super simple, but those breakdown lyrics, I think, help tie that last piece of it.
When did you start like recording the actual song? Because he worked on the lyrics for a while, and then you guys probably like kind of came up with things. But when did the actual recording process of this song start?
I didn't actually record the version that you hear now. I didn't actually record until about 2 or 3 months ago.
Okay.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. I'm in a producing like class right now that I'm taking, learning to produce my own music and stuff. So this was kind of like my big project for the class.
You get an A+ for the class. Let me tell you, this is A-worthy.
Yeah. I'd be surprised if you get anything less than like 9.
This was great practice for that.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was, and I learned a lot through that process with each one. Like, Dysphoria and The Ceiling and Hoodie were all songs that I've produced myself. And like with each one, you learn so much more. So then it just hopefully, gets better and better. So it was a really cool process.
That is really cool, and that's a really fascinating and different process from a lot of songs. A lot of songs, they write it, they're in the studio, and then they release it a couple months later. This has had time to kind of sit there and kind of become its best version.
Yeah, some of the lyrics we didn't change. I didn't change up until about 4 or 5 months ago. So like, as soon as I decided, like, I think this will be my song for October, I revisited it and I changed up some of the lyrics about Cinderella. We had different lines. We still had the Cinderella reference, but I wanted to make it a little bit more in depth. And so I'd come up with some stuff. I sent it to Colt, and like every step of the way, I was mostly just asking his permission too, because it was originally his song. But he's been so cool about it, and he loved it like every step of the way. So yeah, it was really cool.
That's awesome. That is really cool. And the process itself is just fascinating, I think.
Yeah. So you mentioned that you kind of started in the pandemic, and that you've only really like had the pandemic experience to kind of gain fans. How have you felt impacted by the Panini in terms of your music career?
Yeah, that's a really good question. Like, the big thing is for me that I haven't had many opportunities to play stuff live. I've done some live streams and stuff like that, but that's not the same as being in a venue. I did a live stream for House Shows for Hope, which is like a live stream that benefits charities. And that was like my first time actually playing in front of people outside of my home, and I was so nervous. And that's like that's been the big thing for me is it's a lot easier to take time at home and like perfect this vocal cover that you did, or like this guitar video that you make. But then when you actually go out in front of people and play it live, and it's the first time playing stuff that you've written, and being by myself too as a solo artist, it's like extremely nerve-wracking for me, at least, to play just with an acoustic guitar and have the lights on me and stuff. So the online aspect of it has actually been really nice, I would say. I think a lot of people turn to Facebook groups and Instagram and things like that to connect, because everybody was lonely or bored out of their mind or whatever. So that part of it's good, but I don't really feel like I've gotten my feet wet when it comes to like playing shows and stuff like that. So that's like the next thing on the horizon, I guess, whenever we make sure everyone's safe.
Oh yeah,
for sure. And that's really important that you mentioned how that impacts you, because I feel like a lot of people forget that, like, for all these artists who are finally getting ready to like put out music and like become a true musician and just releasing things publicly, it's hard to even like have context with venues or anything, because it's not like you had that chance.
It's one of those things where like I think if I do talk to a venue, they won't know who I am, but then if they actually went and looked at my Spotify, I've got a lot of stuff out. It's just that I don't have another thing about that is I don't actually have a big presence in my home city. Most of my fans, I guess, are in Philadelphia, New Jersey, or across the pond. So that's another interesting thing. Like, when I actually start playing shows and stuff, I'll have to see how the hometown response is. I still don't know what that even looks like yet.
And I think COVID's kind of changed the meta in terms of how music is appreciated these days. I don't think bands have to rely on those live shows as much anymore now that live streaming has become such a big thing. Social media in general has really gone through an evolution, and I know it wasn't intended for musicians, but musicians have really taken advantage of that and found different ways of getting their music out to people that never would have heard of them. Like, even when people used to just play locally, they would have their fans in that particular town, and then they would get really big and start having people across the pond, as you say, listen to their music. Now, with live streaming, you can have fans across the world that have never seen you live, but are like die-hard fans for you. And that's something that musicians in the 90s and even the early 2000s never had that opportunity for until they started becoming a bigger band.
Yeah. Yeah, that's definitely true. I've been very inspired by a lot of the creators like Matt Hafey from Trivium. Um,
Mm-hmm.
they
Oh,
his
that's a
whole
name that's
band,
taking
Matt.
me back. That name is taking me way back.
Yeah, yeah, I'm a big fan of Trivium, and every single one of them, I'm pretty sure their entire band does Twitch, so they do Twitch live streams now. They play games. Mike Shinoda from Linkin Park, he
Yep.
does that too. Like,
Mm-hmm.
so that's something maybe in 2022 I might need to consider more, because I think that it is a cool way to connect with people, and and with TikTok and things, there are a lot of ways to find people. So there's never not an opportunity.
Yeah.
Definitely.
And I think having that live interaction with people rather than just recording yourself and putting on YouTube or doing a song and then putting it on iTunes and Spotify, having that live interaction with people where they can
Mm-hmm.
sit there in your chat and say hi to you and you say hi back to them. Like, there's nothing like that feeling of watching someone that you've looked up to for a really long time on Twitch say hello to you.
Yeah.
Like, that is
Mm-hmm.
an experience that will never be replaced with something else.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
No, definitely.
Because so many people who are under the famous umbrella do live streams and things like that, and you pop into their chat thinking like, oh, they're never going to even notice me, and then they see your name and they're like, hey, how are you doing? You're like, oh my god, I'm starstruck.
Yeah,
But live streaming
yeah.
like that is definitely, it opens so many doors that I think musicians and any content creators really are able to kind of jump years ahead of bands from the past who had to do decades of live shows before anybody outside of their town even heard of them.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Definitely.
It's a fascinating world we live in.
Yes. Very.
It is. It
Go
is
technology.
And scary.
Yeah, it's scary, but at the same time, I'm thankful for it. I think social medias, they can cause a lot of anxiety and they can cause a lot of issues in people. Like comparison.
Oh, yeah.
There are so many things,
Mm-hmm.
but at the same time, it can be a blessing too.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of my friends that have kind of helped me get through the pandemic, and helped me with my mental health. I've met through Facebook groups, like the guys from All Systems Go. I
Yes!
We just interviewed them. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. When I went to Philadelphia last time, I actually met them. So, and I met a bunch of the guys in that scene. So, but I wouldn't have even known them had it not been for those online interactions. So
That's awesome.
it's definitely a blessing, I'd say.
Yeah. And Dysphoria is a very heavy song. It talks a lot about like some really important topics. How is your mental health when writing that song?
Yeah, it's interesting, with Dysphoria, especially because it didn't initially start out, as my song. But what I did when I was like rewriting it and adjusting it along the way is trying to put myself in Colt's shoes,
Mm-hmm.
trying to put myself in, rewinding back in time when
Mm-hmm.
to the times when I felt that way. And me- mentally right now, like I feel like I'm doing actually pretty well, thankfully. But I think a benefit of, um, looking back on something that was hard in your life and writing a song about that, years later, there are multiple benefits. You could write 6 different songs about the same situation just from different perspectives, or you could look back on that song, or that time, and realize something now because you're seeing it with a different, um, lens, or with
Mm-hmm.
more clarity. And so, yeah, with Dysphoria, for me at this point, I've known the song so long that I was channeling those emotions from those earlier times, but it was more just fun. Like, it was a really fun process for me when I started adding the octave guitars and the lead parts, because it didn't have any lead parts before, and I was adding like those extra vocals in the chorus and things like that. I started to realize, like, this feels like a Scooby-Doo song. Like, the punk rock part of it, it reminded me of Terror Time from Scooby-Doo on Horror Island, that little like animated movie that had come out.
Yep.
And I started putting it over the Scooby-Doo clips, and I was like, oh my god, it fits perfectly.
Oh my god, we need to see one. You need to release one of those clips of Dysphoria with Scooby-Doo happening in the background. That would be great.
Yeah.
I've got one on my Instagram. I've got a handful, so if you check it out there, you'll see them.
Oh yeah.
Over the Terror Time video, it almost lines up exactly. Like, every time parts of the song changes, the camera angle changes, or the scene changes, and I was like, this is crazy. I hadn't even edited it yet. So,
that's great.
So it was a lot of fun, and and I got some friends to do some extra vocals on the song too, which was really cool. So yeah, it was a blast, honestly.
That's really cool, and it's good that you didn't have to kind of mentally put yourself in this aspect of suffering to be able to get the song out, because a lot of artists do kind of put themselves in that mentality so that they can write a song that's very genuine, and they can write a song that in the moment they're feeling these emotions, but it's not healthy to put yourself in that kind of mentality just to get content out there. And I think it's great when you mentioned kind of being able to reflect back on how you felt when this was pertinent to you and being able to write the song and have fun with it now. I think that's the most important aspect, because you don't want to write a song that you're suffering and putting yourself through all this hell just to be able to create it. And it seemed like you already had that moment where you could reflect back on it and be like, hey, I saw the end of this, and now I'm going to write a song about that experience, or I'm going to write this experience, and I've moved on, and I can just have fun with this process now.
Exactly. And I feel like that's the important part when writing certain songs that like don't originally come from you, but you want to make it you. Is it's important to not have it impact your mental health so severely. You gotta learn to like have fun with it, and that's the challenge when writing these kinds of songs, is
especially ones with heavy content like this.
Yeah,
I think I'm pretty outspoken about this. Like, I think it's kind of, I don't want to say that it's a myth that you have to be, like a tragic artist, because we know so many people who were successful, tragic artists. But I do think that people have an idea that they have to be going through something, or they have to put themselves in situations. I've had so many friends joke that, once I go through this breakup, I'll be able to write another song again. Or like right now, I can't write anything because my life is good and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And that's where I go back to that point, that you can always put yourself back in those places. And for example, if you're reflecting on a time when you went through a breakup, well, you could write a song about that breakup and how that hurt you. You could also write a song about how you realized like some of your own faults. There's so many different things that you could do to write songs. And so like I think honestly that your best songs come out of you when you're actually doing well, or that's when you have the potential to write your best stuff, because again, you can look back on those times with a different lens and without your emotions clouding what you're trying to say.
It's interesting that you bring up the whole, like, when you have a breakup, at least you'll be able to write a song about it, because there are some huge artists even these days that somebody will say like, oh, so-and-so broke up, I guess we'll be getting a new song soon. One artist in particular I'm not a huge fan of that rhymes with Schmaler Schmift, but people, that kind of became like a thing, like, oh, this person is suffering, I guess they'll be able to create content now. And that is a poisonous way of thinking, because nobody should put themselves through that kind of mentality just to entertain others. Like, obviously, you think of the tragic artists like Vincent van Gogh. He was suffering for so long, and he suffered and he painted the way that he felt in the moment. And even at that time, nobody saw those paintings. Nobody cared about those paintings. It was after they learned the story of his suffering that, ooh, now this painting has meaning. But suffering doesn't give things meaning. And I think the world's kind of backwards on thinking of things like that.
Yeah. The it's funny that you mentioned Vincent, because I actually went to a Van Gogh exhibit recently. It was like an art installation where they had all of his pieces, and they arranged them into like a montage on this huge screen where they would fade in and out between all of his different works. And yeah, I mean, the pieces themselves were gorgeous. Like the amount of different paints that he used in different colors just to create one image is fascinating to me. Just seeing how many layers are in his artwork, and just like, sure, the story, knowing that he was dealing with these addictions or these problems while he made that art, that does give you context, but it's not the reason why it's valuable. You know?
Yeah, and you look at things like that, and you're wondering, was this worth all the human suffering? Think of how different his paintings could have been if he lived in this day and age, when there were things like medication for him to be on and therapy that he could actually deal with the issues. Just imagine how different the paintings would be. He would still be an amazing artist. There is no arguing that, but the tone of it would completely change.
Yeah, absolutely.
I want to reel it back in for a second and go back to your music.
I'm talking about other people now.
Yeah. What are your plans for the next couple of years with Two Eyes Open? Like, where do you want this project to take you?
Music is incredibly important to me, and Two Eyes I've always seen as sort of an art project too. And that's very important to me. So I want to take it as far as I can go, you know. I'm hoping to get a group of people behind me, like have a band, and actually be able to play these songs full band. If it evolves into something else, you know, I take a lot of inspiration from Tom DeLonge of Blink-182, and I like how he makes his music with Angels and Airways bigger than just the band itself. It's, you know, there's art projects, there's all these things around it. So if it turned into something like that, I would be happy, as long as I'm just being true to myself. And I think putting out songs that are of different styles constantly is proof to me that I am doing what I want, because I'm not following like a specific niche, really. You know, for better or worse. So as long as I can keep doing this, keep putting out songs, and yeah, I mean, it's so hard to say years down the line, because you never know what's going to happen. But yeah, I would love to open for my heroes, you know, live one day. I would love to tour like outside of my state. You know, there's so many milestones that I have yet to hit that I would love to hit, and I'm very open-minded, like literally keeping my two eyes open to the future. So
I like that. I like that a lot.
Yeah, that's very wholesome. And I feel like that's true. It's hard to predict the future in a world that has seemed so uncertain lately, with just so many changes happening between the Panini and everything else. Yeah. And you've mentioned a little bit about your inspirations. So I want to have you answer this question that I ask every podcast episode for just no reason. Lily knows what's up.
I know what's coming.
Yes. All right. So you're at dinner, right? The best dinner in the world, like your favorite place or whatever. You can have 5 people to have dinner with. Anyone in the world, dead or alive, but it has to be real human people. Who are the 5 that you're having for dinner?
Okay. Derek from Sum 41.
Okay.
Chester from Linkin Park.
Oh, you're gonna make me cry.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm gonna cry on that one.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, actually, you know, I did the Static X cover today, and Wayne from Static X. That's another person that left too soon. That's a huge influence on me.
Yep.
Let's see. I feel so sad because I'm just naming like dead people, but
well, I mean, this is the opportunity.
Yeah. Stan Lee would be a big one. I don't know if we would have to have a translator. So, but I feel like if he can be here, then I could have a translator, and I feel like that shouldn't count. So I would say Shigeru Miyamoto. He's the person that made Mario and Zelda and all that stuff. So
oh my gosh,
that would be like a crazy group of people. I don't know how they would get along, but that would be. I don't know. I couldn't even. Mind blowing wouldn't even describe that.
You wouldn't even be eating. You'd just be talking the entire time. The food would get cold.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's really cool. That's a really good list.
Yeah, that's very inspirational and very powerful of a list. And like Stan Lee. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Stan Lee.
Stan Lee is proof that you do not have to have a tragic life to be able to create content. Like
exactly,
his content is not revolving around tragedy, and he is a household name. Everybody knows who Stan Lee is, and he did it without having to capitalize on his suffering.
Yeah. If anything, he capitalized on how well he was doing.
Yeah, and helping others. That's everything that Stan Lee was about.
Yeah, absolutely. And if I couldn't do Shigeru Miyamoto because we might have to have a translator, and that would be people, it would be Gordon Ramsay. That would be my.
And he'd be cooking for everybody.
Yeah.
He would be the chef. Oh my gosh! You know what? It would be the 5 of those with Gordon Ramsay cooking your meals.
There you go. Exactly. Gordon can just be there as like an extra to cook the meals and talk about how it's fucking raw.
yeah, exactly.
Oh man, that's great.
Love Gordon.
That's great. He would just be the entertainment, honestly.
He would be. And he has a TikTok that I recently found out about, and just some of that is just hilarious. It's just like him on the shows. It's not even like he tries on the shows anymore. He just is.
Yeah. That's just who he is. Like, his Twitter is really funny too. He's hilarious. Yeah. He's the best.
We love Gordon Ramsay.
That's a good dinner party.
Yeah,
that's a good one.
Dinner party. I think that's one for the books as well.
Oh, normally you ask what food would you have at this dinner party? Like what would be the entree?
Well, assuming that Gordon would be the chef, it would have to be beef Wellington, just because I've never had it, and it's like such a staple in Hell's Kitchen.
In Hell's Kitchen, they always mess up the beef Wellington.
Yeah.
Yep. That's awesome. That's really funny.
Yeah, either that or something with lamb sauce, like, because the lamb sauce is a big deal.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's really funny. I've watched way too much Hell's Kitchen. Like, it's just my background entertainment whenever I'm doing something else. Like, I'll just have Hell's Kitchen on in the back, just listening to Gordon Ramsay making people cry.
we found a channel, I don't know what it is, but I can send it to you later if you would like. But they just play Gordon Ramsay stuff on loop. Like, it's like...
Oh, that's so cool.
Like, Kitchen Nightmares, like everything. And that's actually what we keep playing because we watch all of his stuff so much that I think it's something that the dogs are used to. So when we leave the house, we just leave Gordon Ramsay shows on.
That's so funny.
For them.
That's great.
So if Gordon Ramsay ever wanted to rob you, your dogs would do nothing because they'd be used to him.
Yeah, exactly.
That's too funny.
I love that. So we've talked a little bit about your influences. We know about your mental health because that's a basics thing here.
Sure.
But who are you outside of music? What are your hobbies?
I'm a big gamer. You know, I play a lot of games. I love really, really retro stuff. Like I feel like I'm doing stuff that like kids before me were already doing in like 2002, and I'm like, my mind's blown by it. Like I really like the newest Doom game, so I went back and started playing all the old ones that were like on the like the one that came out in 1993, and then I found out mod that game, and like you can play as Batman if you want to, and I'm just like, it just blows my mind. But people have been doing this for like years.
Somebody modded that game to play it on a pregnancy test.
Yeah.
Like, you can play the original Doom on a pregnancy test.
Yeah.
Doom 64 is also really, really good, and it has been redone since Doom Eternal came out. So if you're looking for, like, the classic Dooms, that is a really good one.
Yeah, it's I've got it on the Switch, I think, and it's spooky. Like, it's definitely...
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
You want to talk about, like, setting a tone. Like, Doom Eternal is very... in your face, fast action. But going back to the older Dooms, they had horror to them, especially Doom 3, which always gets a ton of shit. Doom 3 was straight up horror. Like, it was Dead Space before Dead Space became a thing.
Literally, yeah.
Yeah, like I'm fascinated by it, and it's stuff like that. But then I like RPGs and story-based games too. So I just recently played, like, my favorite game of all time is Earthbound from the Super Nintendo.
Oh, I love Earthbound.
Okay. We love Earthbound.
Yeah,
So,
that's
like,
a classic.
Yeah, I adore that game. So anything that is like any game I see that people compare that to that game, I'm getting it. So
Secret of Mana is a really good one. If you haven't played that, it's a lot like Earthbound.
Yeah, I haven't played it, but I want to.
Yeah, you gotta find the original though. They remade it, and the remake just looks weird. It's like 3D polygons. It's not good, but if you find the classic, and there's even emulators to play the classic, like, it's so good. I even have it on my phone. You can play it on your cell phone. It's such a classic. It's good.
Yeah, I'll have to try it. It's always been like on my periphery, but I've never really.
It's like the pre-Final Fantasy days for Square Enix.
Yeah, yeah. I love games. I like to travel a lot. Like, I was in a long distance relationship for a long time. We're living together now, thankfully. But I would travel to Philly and to New York to see her, and we've been to Albuquerque as well, and Puerto Rico. She's from Puerto Rico, so I've been traveling a lot, and I enjoy that a lot too, and just seeing new places. So I would say, like, right now with you're limited a little bit with what you can do in the pandemic, but those like two things, road trips or whatever, and games have, like, definitely taken up a good amount of my time in a good way.
Oh yeah, and you need to have that way of de-stressing.
Yeah, for sure.
Definitely. And speaking of de-stressing, what are your general basic methods of self-care that you enjoy?
Yeah, I really like, I don't do it, every day or anything like that, but meditating, I feel like like taking a shower is really big for me, honestly. Like, it sounds silly, but like being able to, like, breathe in the, like, I'm trying to figure out how to say this, but like the mist and the
vapor, it's a sensory thing.
Yeah, that, and also just the notion that, like telling yourself things and affirmations. If I'm nervous about something that I'm doing the next day and I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to pull it off or whatever, I frequently will, like, tell myself before I go to sleep, like, you're going to do this and you're going to do it well, and you're like, I think talking to yourself and thinking about the language that you use, like, in your, like, internal monologue is really important. So, like, if I've been working on this a lot since, like, 2018 or so, but I would catch myself, like, everybody is their own worst critic, so I would catch myself saying something really mean to myself and thinking, like, would I have said that to my best friend or whatever, and then trying to think about how I could turn that phrase into something, like, more positive. That's been a really big thing, and I feel like slowly over time it's made me think more positively about myself, just taking those little steps each day, and now it's becoming a little bit more, like, automatic, which has been really cool. So I've had a lot of time to reflect with the pandemic, so I've been thinking about my own thoughts a lot, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think a lot of us tend to be the ones to kind of bring ourselves down. Even when we're doing
Yeah.
something really well, we're going to tell ourselves, oh, well, it's not as good as this person. Or we kind of give ourselves imposter syndrome where we feel like we're not good enough. And I think kind of changing the way that you think about that and changing the mentality so that when you have a negative thought, you turn it around and you tell yourself something positive. And you said it's almost second nature now. So I'm sure that at this point you're your biggest fan, and that's the greatest thing in the world because not a lot of people can say that.
Yeah, it's definitely been beneficial, and speaking to one of your points as well, like I have cut out things, if I just realize it's just toxic for me, like even if I know it's silly, like um I started to do TikTok because everybody was like, TikTok is the thing that musicians should be doing right now, and it's totally true. But when I got on there, all I saw was that I would put out something that I worked hard on, no one would pay attention, and then I would see my friends around me do something similar and blow up, and so I would catch myself like comparing a lot. And so like at least right now, like I would love to get back into TikTok eventually and just stay in my own lane and not take it seriously, just do what I feel. But for right now, I realized it was just kind of toxic for my mental health, so I'm not doing it.
Yeah.
And so those choices, like, sure, it could get me a few more fans or whatever, but
But
for
it's
right
not
now,
worth the mental health issues.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. So
And I love how you brought like social media into all of that and how it can be unhealthy because it's true. It can get to a point where there's an unhealthiness layer to it. Especially like TikTok, there was a study done of how if you are simply even liking transphobic comments, it can go all the way to like white supremacy and severe racism and violence.
oh yeah, take you down
And
the rabbit holes.
yeah, and in like a very short frame time too. And so I feel like it's important to remember to like step back and, like you said, focus on that meditation, taking a shower, um, the basic things that we need to do to kind of like function and keep us in like a positive mood.
Yeah.
And I thought that mentioning how you were like treating yourself as if you were a friend, that was so powerful because I feel like there's so many of us who are in like this depressive mind state, being like, I'm worthless, and just a lot of negative self-talk. Would you say that to a friend though? And I think that's so powerful.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was just something, like I've caught myself, giving advice to my friends and then not following it myself. So then and another thing that I stick by is that, like, um you need to water your own garden before you can, water someone else's. So, or tend to your garden, whatever verb you want to use. And so that's another thing, like I feel like if you're not taking care of yourself, you can't expect yourself to take like great care of another person without it eventually, blowing up because maybe you're burning yourself at both ends,
Yeah.
or whatever.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think if you treat yourself with kindness, then that, will echo back and come back to you from other people.
I love that. Yeah. Um, and this is gonna be a weird question, but I love how
Prepare for it. Prepare for it.
I'm ready.
Kind of switching gears a little bit. If you were to transform into any animal in the world, distinct, fake, real or not, and you could do anything as that animal for like 48 hours. Lily loves this
I'm
question.
laughing about the stipulations that you're adding now from our last answers. Saying extinct, real, not the sun.
Yeah.
We had crazy answers last time, but continue, please. Continue.
So, you're doing whatever you want as that animal for 48 hours with no karma once you turn back into a human form after this 48 hours. What animal are you being, and what are you doing?
I would love to be, an animal that's, you know, in existence right now. Like I think it would be amazing to be an eagle or something like that that can travel like super long distances and um, you know, just see the world from like a completely different lens than you know ever do. I think like a lot of times when I dream, I can like fly and stuff like that. I've always been fascinated by that. I would love to be able just anything that can fly. um, of course, like if it was fictional, then I would be a dragon for sure because then it's just like an eagle on steroids and you can go anywhere you want
We
to.
talking like Game of Thrones dragons or like Hayao Miyazaki dragons from Studio Ghibli? What were we talking about here?
Well, either one, like a European like, you know, dragon versus like a
Eastern
Chinese, yeah,
Chinese.
like either one, yeah. Um, um, yeah, that would be like ideal. Like if I could pick anything, like that would be the thing. I'm also like fascinated with dinosaurs, so it kind of scratches that itch with a dragon. So that'd probably be the number one choice for sure.
You know, I'm noticing a pattern. I don't know if this is just like an artist thing, but a lot of artists like the idea of seeing the world from a different perspective and they choose some
Yeah.
kind of like flying animal. And I
Really?
noticed that pattern. It's kind of fascinating to me.
Yeah.
That's interesting. Yeah, like in a similar way, like sure it would be cool to be like a dolphin or something like that because there's so much about the sea that we don't understand. But
That's
it's
another one
also
we get quite a bit.
Yeah.
We got a
but
manatee for that exact reason. Someone wanted to be a manatee so they could go explore the depths of the ocean.
manatees are so awesome. I've seen them. We saw them like live one time because we were in the Sound at North Carolina, where like the salt water meets the fresh water, and
Mhm.
every now and then they go through there, and we actually saw them like come up for air or whatever, and the
Oh,
cows in the
that's so
sea.
cool.
That's really cool. That's
Yeah.
awesome.
And you know what's a perk that you could do as a bird?
I knew you were going to say this. I knew you were going to say this.
Of course you do. What do you expect from me? This is just my signature speech at this point.
Go for it. Go do your thing. Do your thing, Blake. Do your thing.
You could shit on Trump and
Yeah.
fascists.
Yeah, I was going to say you can drop bombs.
Yep, yep.
That's where I figured you were going.
You can target people. Yep.
Yes.
Yeah.
And as
And
a
that's-
dragon, you could be the Zach thing and just terrorize the haters.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, have you guys ever watched Trogdor, or like have you heard of Trogdor?
Yes, the old YouTube video.
Yeah, like
Trogdor!
yeah, that would be me if I was a dragon. I'd just burninate the countryside.
That's awesome. That's really cool. Oh man, we've had a couple throwbacks during this interview. Trogdor probably trumps all of them. No pun intended.
Yeah.
But that's funny.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, I would definitely be a dragon or an eagle. Like that's my final answer, locked in.
The idea of
I love
flight
it.
definitely is something that comes up a lot, and I think it is an artist thing from being able to experience something that's completely different.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I can see that.
So we're running a little short on time. However, Zach normally asks this question. Unfortunately, they're not here right now. Zach, I'm watching you. I'm kidding. But I see you.
At work, doing work.
Yes. What is the message that you want to, if like there was one message that you want your fans to know about your project and your music and what it stands for, what would that message be?
So, you know, the name Two Eyes Open it has a lot of, I guess, implications, and to me, what that name means is like keeping your mind open to the possibilities, keeping your mind open to new experiences and new perspectives. So I think that's just something that I try to remind myself constantly as you know, we develop as a society. There are things that you might come across or learn about that either interest you, or you might meet someone from like a completely different culture or something like that, for example, and learn about that way of life and how that might relate to things you've done and what you can learn from that. So with Two Eyes Open, though it may not always show up in the songs because it's mostly just like pop punk. But I'm hoping that it's something that feels inclusive, um, and I'm hoping that people get my personality through everything I'm doing. You know, like I'm hoping that it feels like through the songs and through the artwork that comes with those songs that it feels like you're just talking to me. Um, so yeah. And sorry, my dogs are barking. My girlfriend just got home.
You're fine. We're used to dogs and cats interrupting and all that. We love all animals here.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's all good.
But yeah, that's kind of how I feel about Two Eyes Open. I had the name a long time ago, and I didn't really know what it meant. I just wanted something that was um, could be anything really. Like Two Eyes Open could be a metal band, but it could be like a rap group. You know, you wouldn't really know just off the name. But over time, it's sort of developed that sort of meaning for me. Just keeping your mind open to the possibilities in the future.
I love that.
And I know you referenced when you were talking about opportunities that are coming up for you and you want to keep two eyes open. You kind of referenced where that name came from, and I think your answer definitely reflects back to that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't even think about that, but yeah. I make Two Eyes Open puns all the time too. Like anytime like I'm playing a game and it's like keep your eyes open, I like screenshot it.
Two eyes open.
Yeah, every time, like it's so not funny, but I do it all the time. So
That's funny.
Yeah.
That's amazing, actually. I think that your band name is actually like one of the few that you can make those kinds of puns with.
Yeah, and I've got I always joke that I have my own emoji because there is like a two eyes open emoji.
Like really big eyes, like
yeah. So that's my emoji.
That's funny. You should just have like an album cover of just that emoji, just like staring at people.
I've thought about that. Yeah, that would be cool.
That would be really awesome.
That would actually be genius.
Or have like in the two, so two have the O be one of those eyes, and then eyes open have the other O be the other eye, so you'll have two eyes staring at people.
Yeah. Oh, that's great.
That's
actually,
funny.
I love that.
We'll do that for the announcement. We'll have two eyes open and we'll have the eyes staring at people.
Yeah, that would be cool.
I mean, hey, Lily, you do design the graphics.
I could come up with something. I could come up with something with that. That would be really funny. But no, thank you so much for this very insightful podcast. Our podcasts sometimes are kind of goofy. Sometimes we just talk about like nerdy stuff. We can get into the deeper topics. Yours was very insightful, and not just about your own mental health, but how you have improved your mental health. And I think that's something that a lot of people can learn from. I've been sitting here taking notes like, I guess I should stop telling myself that I'm terrible. And I need to start asking myself, like, would I say this to a friend? Hopefully not.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad that I could bring some perspective. That's what it's all about. Like you learn with every new person you meet, you can learn something. So.
Yeah, totally. And I have to say, this was a really great chat. Like Lily said, we have a wide range of like different conversations, but this felt very like personal and kind of special in a way. And I feel like it was a conversation that kind of like needed to happen in a way, with just talking about like our last podcast episode, it was very like heavy in like the mental health, but I feel like this was a nice transition to how do we improve that mental health, like okay, yes, it's important we talk about that, but also how do we improve it and maintain it?
Right.
I think we become complacent in our negative thoughts, and we just kind of get used to it and be like, oh, it's just, it's just my mind, it's fine, and we don't ever think about improving it and what could change. And I think you've kind of given some perspective on that. Yeah,
and like for me, I've tried to do some things that are a little bit more disciplined, like mood journals, like talking about like this is how I felt today, and like tracking all that. I always have these ideas of the things that I should be doing, and then it's like way too much commitment, and then I try to dumb it down to something really easy that I can do. Like instead of doing a mood journal, because that's way too much work for me, I can just like say these positive affirmations or something at night, or I can like when I have coffee in the mornings, like reflect on how I'm feeling. Like at that moment, you know. So
Mhm.
and that feels more manageable for me.
I love that, and that's a great way to notice patterns as well. I know that I also personally journal every night before bed, and that's very helpful when I look back and I'm like, and let's say like I'm in a depressive spot, I can literally go back in the pages to find a time when like I was feeling good and life was good, and it's like, oh, maybe this doesn't last forever, you know?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah.
Well, that's
Well, what
awesome.
a great way to end our podcast.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, I love this. It was great having you, Dustin.
Well, thank you for having me. And if you guys want to talk, like even unofficially or whatever, just let me know. That'd be cool.
Of course.
Yeah,
We're
I'll
we're
reach out
trying to
to you.
do like some gaming podcasts and things like
Yeah.
that. If you ever want to come on for that. Talking
Yeah,
about
Yeah.
doing like RPGs online, like what's the
Yeah.
one? Genshin Impact is the one that we're talking about doing at
Okay.
some point, which is a
Mhm.
fun RPG.
Okay.
But yeah, definitely.
Great. Yeah, that sounds awesome.
We will definitely reach out.
Cool.
So, with that, I am Blake,
I'm Lily.
And I'm Dustin with Two Eyes Open.
and this was
OnlyBands!
OnlyBands!
Yay!